There we go, France Grand Slam champions in 2022. The Stade de France erupts. A fourth Grand Slam of the Six Nations era. And look what it means to the French team. They targeted this. Tears from the captain Antoine Dupont, the best player in the world. Try score tonight. They deserve this.
Absolutely, and look at they haven't been brilliant throughout the whole tournament, but they've got a nice balance of control, but that ability to go into an extra gear, and we saw bits of it tonight. And they make lots of errors, but they're so hard to defend against because of the individual talent they have, plus their ambition and lack of fear of making mistakes. Makes it very hard to pin down, and they have the best player in the world, and they've got 3 or 4 others who could be in a World 15 as well, which is a great place. And they're going to get better. Average age of 26, a home World Cup to come. They're far from perfect, but they're on a very positive trajectory.
Far from perfect, but champions for 2022. Final score, France 25, England 13. Jackie, for the time being, we'll hand back to you.
Thanks, Hugh and Bernard. Yeah, back for the trophy presentation there very shortly. Not perfect, as the lads describe it, but they're champions, and deservedly so, Stephen.
I think over the course of the championship, they have been probably the most consistent team. Ireland, give them a really good run for their money away from home. Very fine, small margins. I think Ireland can come away from this championship with their head held high. Some really good play, even today against Scotland, scoring 4 tries and putting them to the sword. But it's all about France. The style of rugby, they were revving their engine there for certain parts of that game, and then they just put their foot on the throttle, and the way they go and they score a couple of unbelievably good tries. So for me, yeah, they're a joy to watch, and I can't wait to see how they go going into a World Cup next year. But at the minute, they're going to enjoy this moment.
Yeah, and why wouldn't they? Look, you can see the scenes there. We saw Dupont with tears in his eyes, and this is what happens, Jerry, when you put a plan in place, you back them, and you let them go and do it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons for the French victory tonight, and I think some of them will come down to limiting the amount of foreign players that were playing in their domestic league, encouraging, promoting young French players, and specialising the coaching. In particular, you see Sean Edwards has come in, and he's revolutionised their defence, and he's made them a really hard team to play against. Not only have they got flair and imaginative attack and creativity there, but they're also they're a really good defensively team. They have a good kicking game. So I think, they're clearly the best team in this year's Six Nations. And then I think after that it was Ireland, and then there's a significant gap to the rest.
Yeah, and that's exactly the way it was, Jamie. But look at these celebrations. This is exactly what this tournament wants. The best team in it wins a Grand Slam at home like this.
We were talking about it off air. It's probably one of the best Six Nations I've watched in a long time, if I'm honest. Yes, the best team won, and rightly so. But there was, Ireland kind of have been in the mix. They'll shoot them. They will not, when they look back at it, they'll be like, we had an opportunity there. We should have taken it. But the best team won on the day. You can't begrudge them with that. And that squad, it's great for them because no one in that squad has ever won a Grand Slam. The only people who have won a Grand Slam coming into it were the coaches. So you could have flipped it saying that was baggage, but they leaned into the pressure and they owned it.
Yep. Well, this is what it looks like when you become a Grand Slam champion, and why wouldn't they be celebrating? Because they've done it in some style as well. They've scored 17 tries. They have played with absolute flair, and it was Saturday Night Lights in every single way. There they are, top of the table, Grand Slam champions. France is second place finish for Ireland. England finish in third place despite only getting 2 wins in the tournament, and Italy finally gets some Six Nations points on the board after all of these years. First points in 4 years, first win in the tournament since 2015 with that shock victory against Wales today. But it is all talk about Paris and all talk about this amazing French team, Jamie. And I suppose, as you said earlier, when you look back on this is a tournament people remember because we had amazing rugby and a really, really good team to watch here.
Best team in the world, in my opinion. I think they showed that in November, have delivered in terms of consistency. Quite a cohesive group, it seems. And while they probably didn't play the type of rugby or to the level of rugby they played in November, I think they showed in a lot of the tight games a real good strength of mind and resilience in that mindset how they can close out some tight games, how they can win ugly in certain scenarios. And then you hear like the age profile of that group. You've got a home World Cup as well, and it's building quite nicely for them over the next 12 months.
That is one thing to consider, Jerry, as well, because, OK, we talk about the lovely flair and the way they throw the ball around, but they were under pressure against Ireland, they were under pressure against Wales, and they did have a moment in that game as well where England were getting back into the game. So they've had to really push through a lot of those periods as well.
Yeah, I think some of it comes down to, I spoke earlier about like when you bring in someone like Sean Edwards as a specialist, and they brought in specialist coaches around their kicking game as well, and I think you can see then that they're more rounded. So when the attack isn't working exactly, they can rely on something else. They can rely on having strong defence. They, when you watch them in the Irish game, how they counter-rucked all of Ireland's rucks, just become a very hard team to play against in every aspect. I think they were clearly the best team in this year's Six Nations, and it was a brilliant Six Nations.
Like even their discipline, simple things like, Hugh referenced it there as well. You bring in Jerome Garces, they're not giving away a single yellow card in the whole tournament. It was nearly 20 minutes before they gave away a penalty in this game. Their discipline has been impeccable as well. Yeah,
and that's something that you would look at in years gone by with French teams that they weren't particularly good at, was their discipline. But Bernard referenced Wales not having a great foundation, and you could say Scotland and Italy lacking as well, and England seem a bit all over the place. But specifically Ireland, and more so France, they've got some pretty heavy-duty concrete in those foundations, because you just look at the platform that they have up front, the continuity in their team selections, and they're just working really well as a unit. And I think you lay a marker down in the pack, the physicality, their work rate over the ball, work rate off the ball. We always used to say in team meetings, they're lazy. Look at them, they're not getting back in the defensive line. But Jimmy's right, it's a change of mindset. They've always had the ability to do it. They're just now really well coached.
The other part in that change of mindset is now they're winners, Jamie. You were talking about before the tournament, there was pressure on them, they need to win. Now they're winners, which puts them in the perfect place ahead of next year.
Yeah, and winning's addictive. Like, you get a taste of it, you want it again, you want that hit again, and they'll celebrate tonight. They'll be the kings of Paris, the kings of France again.
Get a little bit of red wine,
yeah.
just a touch. And when they wake up tomorrow morning or in a few days, they'll want that feeling again, particularly in that blue jersey, and that will kind of reignite. Speaking from my own experience, it kind of reignited a drive in you that kind of just brings you to another level in terms of your standards, your expectations of yourself and of everyone.
Yeah, and look, it is what it does for a squad, Jerry. You've experienced this even yourself with the last year of just what it can do for a young squad like that and the cohesion it gives them.
I think it's been a long time. They've been building towards this. If you look at it like their underage teams, their under-20s teams winning World Cups, they've had success with those underage with their age grade teams coming up. And then the fact that they limited the amount of foreign players that can play now in their domestic league with their GIF, so players had to come through an academy system, which limited the amount of kind of players who were just going over to pick up a paycheck, foreign guys, and then specialist coaching. So it's all manifested in itself in this performance through the Six Nations, and I think it's been excellent.
Well, they are definitely going to enjoy this moment. Let's get you back over to Hugh and Bernard.
Stade de France has the final few players receive their medals ahead of the trophy presentation. Of course, the captain Antoine Dupont will be the final French player to get his medal and take the trophy up onto the stage. But no question about it, Bernard Laporte, obviously as vice chairman of the Six Nations as well, is going to present the trophy. No question about the best team winning the championship for 2022. Ireland obviously came to Paris and gave it a right go, but France have been so impressive, and the stand is going to erupt as Antoine Dupont lifts the trophy and France are crowned Grand Slam Six Nations champions for 2022. It'll be a long night of celebration all around Paris and all around France as well. And it's great to have French rugby back, Bernard.
Yeah, look at they bring so much to this competition. And it's a great place to be. I think, Rafael Ibanez was interviewed there. He said the players need to keep their feet on the ground. This is a major milestone, but in 512 days, the World Cup final is going to be played in this stadium, and they want to be part of that. But yeah, it's the age of this group. It'll give them massive confidence. As I said, some of them have won European Cups with Toulouse. Some of them have won a Junior World Cup, but to win with France at senior level, will confirm that they're on the right track and will give them a huge belief, which is daunting really, because they can get so much better.
The lights go off in the Stade de France, the party atmosphere kicking in, the music is on, and most of the crowd has stayed to cheer on their champions for 2022. It's been a brilliant tournament overall, both for France, obviously as champions, and for Ireland as well, as you mentioned earlier, playing some brilliant rugby at time. Plus 105 points difference, I think, tells its own story. Not to be for Andy Farrell's men this year, but definitely heading in the right track. OK, from the Stade de France in Paris, Jackie, back to you.
I tell you what, those two lads are going to go off for a boogie now. The DJ is on it. The lads are going to be loving that. And look, Stephen, that's a party atmosphere that you can sense now how much they are going to enjoy that in France tonight. That team have waited a long time for a moment like this, and so have those fans. Yeah, definitely. Why couldn't Mark send me over there to do the commentary in that game? It looks like it's going to be an unbelievable night in Paris. And fair play to them. They deserve it. They deserve to go out, have a few beers, relax and enjoy the occasion, because I think we're talking about France here an awful lot, but Ireland have felt not been able to win the championship. England, they got to rebuild. They want to win it next year, so the other teams are going to be trying to hunt them down. They've now got a big target on their back, and everybody's going to want to take a scalp. And look, Grand Slams are so hard to come by. Like, the three of you sit in this studio here tonight, Jerry, and you think, OK, we're Grand Slam winners. There's not a lot of people get to have that privilege in life. And for those French players, it's something that, even at the start of this championship, winning a Grand Slam seems so far away for anybody. Yeah, I suppose because you have to be almost perfect in terms of your results. So it is something. And if you think of it, like in the past, France have had some really embarrassing Six Nations campaigns. Like you can have a poor campaign where you've had injuries in key parts, but some of them, like, people were laughing at France a few years ago, and now everyone's looking at them and going like, these guys are the standard setters. So, fair play to them. Yeah, well, look, best team in world rugby is, according to Jamie Heaslip. Let's hear from Rafael Ibanez. He's been speaking a short time ago.
Well, Rafael, now your players can join in the enjoyment that you knew from a few seasons back. They're Grand Slam champions. What does this mean to French rugby?
12 years is a very, very long time, and it's been a very tense final game, but we get the reward. I think we're very lucky to have a fantastic group of players.
There were moments when you were rocking a little bit. England were coming back at you. What was going through your mind?
Well, we're just thinking we need to hold on, and fair play to England. They try to break our defense, but I think the spirit, team spirit, heart, and tactics, won us the game.
In, 500 or so days' time, there's going to be a World Cup final here. This is the perfect launch pad, isn't it, for France to take this French rugby team to take the game to another level? Yeah, but I would recommend our players, to stay our feet on the ground, because it's just a major step for this team tonight. There's more to come. There's more to come. I think we can still improve our game. Many congratulations. Well done indeed.
Thank you.
You got the sense that England felt that was game over as well, Jamie, because, Jerry rightly said maybe they just left it too late.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that's the game when he went over. But in fairness, when we were talking, we kept saying, like, when England started getting into the games, because they let the shackles off, they played a little bit like there was nothing to lose, and they actually got some return on it. They brought people like Donbrandt on, who got them over the gain line even more so, actually cut an unbelievable line, was unlucky to get over. But when they played with a sense of freedom, they were good. When they were tight, unfortunately, France kind of strangled them. Throwing forward 500 days' time, World Cup,
Ireland play the world champion South Africa in the group, and then if we get out of the group and we get to the quarter-final, we've got France or New Zealand. You're looking at them tonight, and Jerry, you might be wondering, who would you prefer?
It's difficult because we're so far out from it. I think we'll probably be more familiar. I suppose. Look, we've got the tour to New Zealand in the summer to look forward to, but currently we'll probably be more familiar with the French team. And you know, when we played New Zealand, we gave them a really good performance, and we put lots of points on them. I think that the French team, I think it was interesting listening to Raf Ibanez saying it's important that they stay grounded now, because New Zealand have been there and done it. They've won World Cups. They know what it's like to lose World Cups and how they get treated back when they go home. So they'll probably have an element of the humble Kiwi going into it, whereas it's important for these guys that there's a level of humility across that French performance now. That from here they start building towards a World Cup rather than just losing themselves on winning a Grand Slam.
Yeah, and look, to be fair, you only learn that through those elements, Stephen. Like, you know, this is the first time a lot of these group have been through I suppose a set of games like this and actually won something. So they'll have learned a huge amount out of that too.
Yeah, learned a huge amount. Getting into this World Cup, there's going to be injuries, there's going to be loss of form, players are going to drop. And when you get to a quarter-final stage, there's usually one or two big names that aren't on the team sheet when it comes to a quarter-final. And if there's one or two of the French names, I probably prefer to play France. Like you've seen there, the amount of names that are turning out week in and week out, and they've got that consistency. But if you pulled two or three of those lads out, would they be the same team? Where if you pulled two or three lads out of the New Zealand team, that they can still perform at the same level. So I know I'm looking very far ahead here, Jackie, probably too far ahead. But yeah, I would certainly have New Zealand. But in terms of the French boys, they'll learn an awful lot from that today and getting some silverware under their belt.
Yeah, look, and to be fair, we can all do that a lot where we look so far ahead because you're constantly thinking World Cups, World Cups, World Cups. But when you look at this Six Nations though, Jamie, you know, and the lads referenced it in commentary as well, the gulf between the top two and the rest has really appeared in this Six Nations.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to people, my 2 cents would be, I feel as people who invested in the long term versus the short term. And I think French rugby and Irish rugby have invested in the long term in their academy setups, bringing those young players through, funneling them in, having a coherent structure to develop them all the way up to senior, and having the national team aligned somewhat. It's very different, obviously, the way the French league is set up, but having the strategy kind of aligned, and I think that's what's been the difference maker with them, and playing a brand of rugby as well that suits the players and the skill sets that they have. The French are lucky. I think we always used to talk about France. They have a massive playing population, some amazing athletes of all shapes and sizes, but they were just so unstructured and not coherent at all. But they've gotten their act together. They have a real kind of North Star, it seems, and be the World Cup, and they've kind of, over the last few years, definitely designed a whole programme to deliver it.
It's funny, because even on a Super Saturday, and we have got 3 thrilling games, to be fair, but the cream has risen. Yeah. Italy have got the job done. England, last year, they win 2 games and they finished 5th. This year, they win 2 games, they finished 3rd. And suddenly, we're looking at it and we're just thinking, okay, yes, okay, you can look at Ireland and France and say they're spectacular, but England, what have they learned by a 3rd place finish where it was very similar to their 5th place finish last year, you know?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I'm not sure, really. I think the jury is probably out a little bit. I think Eddie Jones he's a master at sort of, I suppose, controlling the media narrative around that England side, but it's probably been a disappointing Six Nations for England. When you consider the resources they have, the quality of players, they haven't lived up to it. I think something to keep in mind is that, like, when you look at the French team, the fact that Toulouse are firing on all cylinders, they make the bulk of that French team, and you look at the Leinster team, they're firing, they make up the bulk of the Irish team. If you look at the other countries, it's not quite as easy to say which team, which club side there, or which region or franchise is delivering and giving that level of cohesion to the national team, which I think is a big factor.